Chapter 1. Pole Positions. No task is a long one, but the task on which one dare not start. It becomes a nightmare. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. For a great many people, getting started on the road to wealth is the most difficult part. Or so they believe. The nuisance of each individual case need not concern us, but the difficulties, as stated by virtually everyone I ever listened to on the subject, usually fall into one of three broad categories, often age related. If young and relatively penniless, many will argue their lack of experience and capital, especially capital, dooms them to decades of wage slavery. If slightly better off and on the way up with a halfway decent job and perhaps the probability of further advancement, the problem is often considered to be the loss of what they have already achieved, plus the lack of capital. By the time one is a senior manager or professional, probably with a decent house, a mortgage, and children, it is the risk to the security and happiness of the latter, and maybe to the spouse, plus the usual lack of capital, which are most often cited as insuperable difficulties to taking the plunge. All such objections to becoming rich are spurious, no matter how sincerely held. But before dealing with each in turn, let me digress for a moment regarding upbringing, race, color, educational qualification, and gender. I'm doing so here because I do not wish to waste anybody's time. We will be touching on some of the circumstances described above shortly. But in a nutshell, my experience has been that money is color blind, race blind, sex blind, degree blind, and couldn't care less who brought you up or in what circumstances. Money is one of the most neutral substances on earth. Others may conspire against you obtaining it through bigotry or prejudice, but they can only succeed if you permit them to. The object of your goal in and of itself is non-sentient. If you truly believe that your race, sex, or upbringing can keep you from becoming rich, then you had best give up here. Either return this book or the shelf, or if you have already bought it, return it to the bookstore for a refund or give it to a friend. You may obtain the refund or please a friend, but you will never get rich. Young, penniless, and inexperienced is the same the whole world over. Is the poor what gets the blame? It's the rich what gets the pleasure. And it all a bleeding shame. Excellent. You stand by far the best chance of becoming rich as you please. You have an advantage that neither education nor upbringing nor even money can buy. You have almost nothing, and therefore you have almost nothing to lose. Yes, I know you have heard all that before, but consider for a moment nearly all the great fortunes acquired by entrepreneurs arose because they had nothing to lose. Nobody had bothered to tell them that such and such a thing could not be done or would be likely to fail. Or if they had been told, then they weren't listening. They were too busy providing those around them wrong without even meaning to. Not knowing that something cannot be done, you are likely to waltz into uncharted mini fields where angels before you have feared to dance. Astonishingly, you may be fortunate enough to succeed to some degree or another. Conveniently, wisdom will then be received by those around you, and the next generation will be taught that what you did can always or often be done. Only to discover, when they attempt it themselves, that in reality you missed every landmine by pure dumb luck. Never trust the vast mountain of conventional wisdom. It contains great nuggets of wisdom, it is true, but they are lie alongside rivers of fool's gold. Conventional wisdom dawns initiative and offers far too many convenient reasons for inaction, especially for those with a great deal to lose. Fortunately for you, you do not have anything to lose and can afford to ignore Job's words and Jeremiah's, who have lied upon the mountain for so long that they have come to worship it. Nor is a propensity for risk taking your only advantage. You have stamina far beyond those who are 20 or 30 years old. The stamina necessary for long grinding hours of labor in the cause of getting rich, stamina enough to party all night and go straight back to work for a 12 or 16-hour day. I remember such stamina fondly. You have no idea how much that stamina of the young is envied by the rest of us. Along with a degree colossusness, and inviolable powers of speedy recuperations from reverses, stamina is your secret weapon. Its attributes will see you through a raft of catastrophes that would virtually annihilate older men and women. In addition, your instinctive knowledge of modern technology gives you another edge. All those hours spent playing computer or video games might not have been such a waste after all. At least you know the difference between an iPod and a JPG. And knowledge is power in whatever age, whether earned by blood and tears or embedded at a mother's breast. Treasure that instinctive knowledge. I still own half of the personal computing magazines in Britain: PC Pro, Computer Shopper, Computer Buyer, Mac User, Custom PC. In part because of an early addiction to pinball and electronic arcade games. While I knew nothing of computing and still do not, the instincts owned by countless hours of shoving money into slots warned me of their potential. The first few million pounds I've ever treasured were direct result of trusting instincts entirely at odds with conventional wisdom of any sort. Two immediate examples leap to mind. As we will see in more detail later, I published a series of 8-page full-color folded posters with headlines and articles printed on the back and charged the same cover price as magazine with 10 times the number of pages. The results were dubbed a poster magazine and sold millions of copies around the world. Nobody had told me it couldn't be done because nobody had done it before. Similarly, as previously noted, I launched half a dozen magazines about a new fad called personal computing back in the 1980s. Even though British magazine retailers and wholesalers at the time were unanimous in their belief that nobody will ever buy them, those magazines have earned me tens of millions of pounds in the last 25 years and are still earning me money today. Conventional wisdom is usually right, but when it is wrong, it can offer quite extraordinary opportunities for those too stubborn or inexperienced to pay attention to well-meaning naysayers. Perhaps most importantly of all, as a young and penniless and inexperienced person, you are not an expert. Thus, you are more willing to learn than those in their 30s, 40s, or 50s. You are not afraid of making mistakes, admitting them when you do, and getting right back on track. Speaking of tracks, you have no track record to defend either. Here is a ball beyond price and glory, hallelujah. It costs you nothing to obtain. Anyone not busy learning and busy dying. For as long as you foster a willingness to learn, you will ford off slurries of the brain and hardening of the mental arteries. Curiosity has led many a man and woman into the valley of serious wealth. Ambition, fearlessness, self-belief, stamina, a degree of callousness, a willingness to learn, these are your advantage over the middle-aged and the old. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. Could you turn the clock back for me by 40 years? I would willingly swap you every penny and every possessions I own in return. And I would have the better of the bargain too. So what does the future hold for a young man or woman determined to become a far wealthier than their parents? Here is how I see it. The way will most likely be hard, your failures many, it will be fun and it will get a little hairy, even scary at times. But the earlier you start and the more risk you are prepared to run, tempered by listening hard and choosing the right mountain, we will come to that later, the more certain it is that sooner or later you will find yourself with a small success on your hands. And one success with luck will lead to another. If there is a single category of person for whom this book should prove the most useful, it is you, the young, penniless, and inexperienced. I know I have been there. And if I was lucky enough to find a way through, then so can you. Stick with me, young brother or sister. You are suffering from nothing more than excusable confusion and lack of experience, conditions that will pass with time, and whose passing can be expedited by fierce determination and application. Believe it or not, I envy each and every one of you, slightly better off and on the way up. I have a bone to pick with fate. Come here and tell me, girlie, do you think my mind is maturing late or simply rotted early? This is the point at which many people vaguely wonder about starting their own businesses, either on their own or with a partner or two. They have enough experience to know how the companies they work for function, perhaps even how the industry functions, And they see a niche as yet imperfectly filled. They have an idea. See chapter 5, the fallacy of the great idea. Yet they hesitate. They fear losing what they have already achieved more than they desire to enrich themselves. Personally, I am on more than familiar terms with this syndrome. I meet it every day because it affects or reflects a great many of the fine men and women who run my own companies, perhaps even a majority of them. I employ a great many people smarter than I am. That's not false modesty. That's a stone cold fact. The only two reasons they continue to work for me and put money into my pocket are that on the positive side they enjoy their work, and on the negative side they fear losing what they have already gained: challenging work, genial colleagues, a certain status, and the promise of promotion and pay rises. They know this as well as I do. They are far from fools, otherwise I would hardly employ them. But fear holds them back, with the exception of those rare individuals who are content with a lot. And what is fear? Fear is the little death by a thousand cuts. Goes the ancient Japanese saying, nifty, but ultimately unhelpful. Helpful. Similar to Shakespeare's cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. But is fear really the father of coward dies? Let's leave that to the philosophers in business. In the accumulation of wealth, it is an impediment for sure. But then so is recklessness. So, no, I believe that it is the fear of failure which looms largest here. And fear of failure is definitely something that can be dealt with and will be dealt with at length in this book. Chapter 3, Harnessing the Fear of Failure. Outsiders are sometimes surprised at my reaction when people in this category, the slightly better off and on the way up, decides to leave one of my own companies and set up their own. I always wish them well, not only outwardly but in my heart too. Often I throw a party for them or write glowing testimonials. Once or twice I have even underwritten their office leaves or introduced them to banker or a lawyer I trust. Why do I react that way? Three reasons. Firstly, I'm proud of them, proud that those who work for me are brave enough, motivated enough, and trained sufficiently well to go for it on their own. Boldness attracts applause, as the writer philosopher Goethe once remarked in Doggerel. Whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Secondly, it's win-win. If they fail, they may well return to our company, especially if they remember that my senior colleagues and I sincerely wish them success in their own new venture. Thus, if they fail, the company will enhance by their return. While if they should succeed, then we will be all richer for having an old alumni as friendly rival in the industry rather than having created an enemy who wishes us anything but well. Lastly, it's because I fear them. I fear they may have spotted something we have missed. Some gap in the market. I fear we have failed to listen to them. I fear that their new venture will grow at our expense while it poaches our personal and our market share. And the only way to deal with fear is to cozy up to it, to took it in the eye and pump its hand, to translate its negative energy into adrenaline, to harness it, to laugh with it rather than at it. Perhaps this could be you giving your current boss the scars of his or her life, at the very least, providing your idea or venture has serious merit. Any sensible company would attempt to buy you off. If they do not, then perhaps they are not a company that deserves to benefit from your talents. It's a thought, isn't it? As one who has been the boss for longer than many of you have been alive, I can assure you that you enjoy much greater leverage than you might believe, but you will never find that out until you go for it. For the slightly better off and on the way up, now is the time to consider whether or not you intend to continue making me and people like me even richer, or whether you wish to become rich yourself. You have little time left in which to make up your mind. Your youth and stamina is ebbing away. You are getting too comfortable. It is not a course for everyone, but I think you can guess what my advice to you would be. For the help, go for it. Senior manager or professional. Pushy young Turks are impatient for news. Young Cinderellas are singing the blues. Wannabes, just like you used to be, choose. Who's gonna fill this dead man's shoes? Dead man's shoes. Welcome. I'm surprised you could bring yourself to read such a book. It's a good sign. It shows you are still curious, still hungry, not as hungry as the penniless lad or lass at the beginning of this chapter, of course. But then youth is wasted on your young. And they have so much learning to do they have not. You, on the other hand, have learned much. There is a little about your company you do not understand, little too about your industry that has escaped you. You have seen a great many fools that plunge into freelance work or set up in business on their own with such high hopes, and watched nearly all of them come crashing down in flames or creep through the bankruptcy cuts, both hoping nobody would notice. But I bet you noticed. I bet my bottom dollar that you noticed. Still, there have been one or two who made it, haven't they? One who even suggested you to the plunge with her and take a piece of the action. Was the one you turned down? The woman who waves when she passes you in her Mercedes-Benz SLR convertible on her way to a golf club you cannot afford to join, from a house on the water with its own dock apparently. The one who is now far richer than she deserves to be. The one who got lucky. Let's face it, you are an hour smarter than she is, or will ever will be. Annoying, isn't it? But you don't have to give up hope. With luck, you will make the board in 4 or 5 years if you haven't already. So much easier to strike out on your own from such a position rather than acting precipitately none. The banks will listen more closely to board director after all. And it's true you have responsibilities. The mortgage has some years to go, although the house increases in value every year. The kids aren't through college yet, but they soon will be. It's just a question of waiting, of recognizing the realities of the present tempered by the necessities of the past and the possibilities of the future, as the author R.G. Collins would put it. But then he was writing about history. If you detect a trace of cynicism in the above description, then you are correct to do so. And for a simple reason, in nearly 40 years of doing business, I know of only 6 senior managers or professionals between 40 and 50 who stuck on out on their own, and two of those were lawyers. One did very well indeed with his own law firm, two of them did fairly well. One went belly up and never recovered financially. One threw in the towel and owns a tinny bar on an island in Protea. I suspect he is the happiest of the lot. The remaining one shot himself when his venture collapsed. None of them became really rich. Yet you picked up this book. You're still curious. You're still hungry. Freedom, my lone friend, how to get rich may subvert you yet, though I very much doubt it. And you know what? The kids and the house and the mortgage and your retired parents and the love of your life, whether man or woman, and all your current responsibilities, they are not the real problem. They are either inanimate, or they love you, or they don't love you. They will not love you less or more if you decide to surprise everyone around you and seize the time. As you could seize it if you truly wish to, then you would show them. Why not face the unpalatable truth? These are excuses, they are nothing but a smoke screen, an alibi, convenient camouflage to prevent you from accepting that you will probably never be rich. Soon you must choose. Many people would say you have left it too late to choose, but still you picked up this book. You're still curious, you're still hungry, and you know it can be done even better than the young penniless and those who on their way up. You know it can be done. Better still, you know how it can be done. You have helped make it happen for someone else. The only question is, will you dare to try? If you will, then you are 1 in a million, or 2 million, or three. Your chances are slim, but they are not impossible. My earnest advice is to get yourself a young and fearless partner with tons of stamina. Choose him or her with care. It's your best chance to get rich.